Hello everyone, my name is Simran Chopra. I'm doing my research at Northumbria University and in the final year of my PhD. I'm an Indian citizen living in the UK, working with deprived, marginalized communities who grow food in urban areas. I acknowledge the immigrants on this land and throughout the world from past and present, including my ancestors, and the labor that they put in to be part of society to create a better world for themselves and for others. I do recognize my privilege as I speak to you in English, a result of colonization, however, using it to voice systemic injustices and oppressions. Thank you for coming to my paper presentation. It is my pleasure to present to you on behalf of myself and my co-authors, who you can see listed on the slide. Our paper is called Infrastructuring Ecological Sustainability Through Multi-Scalar Speculations. This paper responds to the challenges faced by grassroots sustainability communities in addressing ecological issues through local action. We report on a series of speculation-oriented engagement with an urban food-growing community at early stages of an infrastructuring process, as an example of sustainability research within participatory design. In this work, we understand the efforts of our community of food growers as a way of living a more sustainable life by challenging existing ecologically unsustainable lifestyle habits and habitats within this approach and manifested through the design of various speculative spaces. We address questions of how to meaningfully support communities in exposing concerns as they envision future ecological sustainability. This research is part of a long-term collaboration involving academic research and a local community interest company based in an economically deprived neighborhood in the UK. Our four speculative workshops focus on exploring with the community future socio-technical visions of food growing to shed light on how these are positioned within and unconstrained by local, national, and global socio-political contexts, contributing understandings of relational agency and infrastructuring for sustainable design using multi-scalar perspectives on sustainable practices. Recently, an increasing number of authors have urged the participatory design community to play a more significant role in addressing longitudinal global issues that are plaguing the planet. And as a matter of priority, of particular concerns is the need to foster understanding of ecological unsustainability as a consequence of complex social practices entwined within multiple normative structures like local government policies, how these structures disempower citizens by disregarding situated knowledges and place-based interventions, which have very complex histories and fragile ecosystem. So prior work in participatory design, engaging with grassroots communities has focused on co-developing futures or challenging normative one by creating alternatives. However, many of these reported projects tend to portray a fairly unproblematic narrative of success, but the wider participatory design research community is becoming increasingly aware that there are two sides to the participatory design process: the reporting of our successful research stories and often hidden and harder to articulate messy conflictual dimensions unfolding through the process. With the ever so present challenges that ensue, for example, the climate crisis, now more than ever, we must fully engage with these messy side of practices, and we must respond to these challenges and limitations that participatory design faces as it strives to support and sustain socio-political action within these contexts, and to foster more sustainable ecological futures as they are so forcefully shaped by wider landscapes of socio-political change. Um, we report on a community food growing project as an example of sustainability research within participatory design, demonstrating the complexity of such engagements when working through relationships across local and global concerns. We focus on infrastructuring place-based action of the community and connecting these to the broader socio-political and economic landscapes. So our work engages with Clarke and Schiller's idea of multi-scalar orientation. And so they say that socio-spatial spheres of practice that are constituted in relationship to each other and within various hierarchies of networks of power, scales are not considered as distinct in their spatial categorization of macro, micro, meso, but they're mutually constituted, relational, and interpreting, spanning global interconnected processes. Therefore, applying a multi-scalar orientation to infrastructuring and design calls for explicitly attempting to surface the different scales enacted in everyday social material practices. Furthermore, to address these multi-scalar concerns, we moved away from the experiment as a site where controlled variables can validate hypotheses, but to look at it as an iterative, evolving, ongoing tinkering process. So local food growing is a very well researched site for sustainability action and sits within a nexus between planetary systems, global and local ecologies, and political economies. Therefore, to create an evolving process that would surface such a nexus, we devised a series of experimental workshops where we actively sought to bring to the fore everyday future-oriented practices that connect different socio-political and economic skills linked to potential futures. With our workshops, we aim to open spaces where multi-scalar concerns and practices around food growing and ecological sustainability could be explored and their relationships examined. We contribute a multi-scalar perspective to speculative participatory workshops to connect everyday ecological food practices and imagine futures to socio-political realities across micro, meso, and macro scales. The workshop surfaced how social material complexities shape imaginations for sustainability and relational civic agency for situated change. So we worked with a neighborhood in the northeast of England, which has a multi-ethnic resident population and has a number of active citizen initiatives. But the neighborhood is also facing deprivation due to austerity measures. Engagement with the neighborhood's food growing community began when the director of a local micro business contacted our research team in early 2018. Our exploratory series of 4 participatory workshops were designed to foster relational spaces where everyday ecological sustainable food practices and their imagined futures could be articulated and connected to the wider structures and landscape of socio-political and economic uncertainties faced by the community in order to build capacity and better navigate such complex contexts by employing a variety of multi-scalar design strategies and tactics to bring to the fore the tensions and conflicts that arise at different intersecting scales. Like micro would be a garden or a neighborhood, a meso would be national policies, macro would be planet. As these everyday activities are related to or connected to these local, national, and global politics, where emergence of responses and concerns are key to each workshop aligning with research, where the interventions were designed and staged to intervene in everyday life as a site for applying situated methods that surface alternative forms of awareness and relational understanding. To this end, we designed each workshop in accordance with the responses and concerns surfaced in the previous one and brought these into dialogue with specific geographical scales. For example, the results from the first workshop, which was about the food growing spaces in the neighborhood, informed the design and delivery of the second workshop, which was about visiting these places on the walk and reimagining the neighborhood. So each workshop was focusing on the food growing community and their practices to deepen multi-scalar exploration rather than extending it beyond the community, revealing the messy underlying values, politics, and attachments deriving ongoing efforts of the local urban food growing community, thus leading to the emergence of multi-scalar themes and concerns, example, power, relations, place expressed by the community, and then folding these insights into each workshop into the next subsequent session. So our findings surface creation of commons through individual sharing and catharsis, situation of tensions and future action within the neighborhood, experiences of disempowerment through scale, problematization of innovation through everyday practices and community values. For consideration of time, I will elaborate on the third one, which is experiences of disempowerment through scale. In the workshops, fictional futures and speculative spaces were shaped by actual political landscapes like Brexit, which was present at the time. This exposed the scale and uncertainty associated with the macro level challenges, and with abstract concepts such as sustainability, climate change, and national and global politics. These evoked anxieties in participants who voiced their lack of agency in shaping and navigating events like Brexit and climate change, which would eventually impact the community food growing future at the local neighborhood level. As a result, the participants exchanged their current views and opinions on the matter of these macro level concerns rather than engaging with the possibilities of creating alternate futures. It became difficult for us as researchers to engage in discussions on potential speculative responsive to such significant world changing or world shaping events. However, we also came to better appreciate the impact that these have on participants and their sense of making things possible within their reach. So through our case study, we aim to build capacity and resilience by activating different scales to support connections to the bigger picture of a detrimental economic and political system. The aim was to collectively have a better understanding of the implicit relationships and the political structures that underpin food growing efforts, highlighting what was considered both valuable and problematic in current and imagined futures. We discuss our strategies for activating place-based concerns and servicing relational civic agency when developing multi-scalar speculation within participatory design. I will discuss infrastructuring place-based sustainability through multi-scalar experiments. For urban food growing, place-based responses are significant for infrastructuring efforts, since access to and use of specific pieces of land and soil is fundamental to the practice in a way that isn't always relevant in participatory design contexts where infrastructuring and social innovation has previously taken place. At the same time, the ability to grow food in urban areas is also impacted by a range of local and global concerns and influences beyond the control of residents, like policies and access to land, etc. Our intention was to bring into dialogue these different scales and a multi-scalar approach in a more practicable way by moving between very intimate spaces of, say, home gardens to and relating it to planetary care, and situating our workshops within the context of the neighborhood and the community's ongoing efforts in sustainable food growing activities in juxtaposition to these scalar issues helped us focus ideas and speculations around existing infrastructures and achievable place-based change. Through the multi-scalar infrastructuring process, we surface these gritty articulations of the valued and problematic relationship between community members, available resources, and constraining forces. The value of doing so was also found in the workshop's ability to bring to the fore how these issues were perceived differently by different members of the community, sparking debates and emotionally charged contestations, and thus exposing place-based issues that are embodied multi-scalar conflicts like land ownership and conflicts of private public spaces, bringing to for the tacit taken for granted norms and politics embedded in the mundane community infrastructures and their installed base, raising perhaps more profound questions as to what and who can benefit from community food growing. However, questions like these can lead to diversity of responses, which can be difficult to consolidate in a consensual action for researchers or communities to tackle. Thereby, researchers need to create ways of navigating diversity of ideas and possible sustainable futures at local scale in order to be able to act. We also suggest sustainability and community-based action in participatory design should highlight the importance of scale, not just in terms of focusing on local scale intervention, but also in terms of how future work should connect to larger scale political, social, and economic factors that impact people's ability to create change. Please read our paper for more details. Thank you for attending our presentation. Please feel free to get in touch and ask questions about our work.